Middle seat, Syed on Wur Prison, playing Brent Coffindaffer on Hardened Scales Affinity. And then we have Brad Carpenter, Selesnya Tokens in Standard against Buzzy Adriatico on Grixis Control. That one in Standard, 2 decks I would not have expected to see at the 4-0 table.
No, and Selesnya Tokens is a deck that's generally going to be good against strategies that just aren't either trying to be very control-y or against the Golgari decks, because finality can be such a beating.
Yeah. Buzzy's deck is a 4 of Disinformation Campaign, 4 of Nicol Bolas the Ravager deck.
Ooh, let's see if Brad has any Nullhide Ferox.
So we go to our Sultai versus Izzet match over here in Legacy. Now, traditionally, these mid-range Baleful Strix decks are built in a way where they can compete with a Delver of Secrets strategy.
Right.
But with Izzet Delver being almost a hybrid of a Burn and Delver deck, how does this play?
So this one is actually a little bit better for the Izzet Delver decks because it is just better at closing games. You have a lot more reach, whereas your more traditional Delver decks might lean a bit more on something like Tarmogoyf or Gurmag Angler, which is going to die to an Assassin's Trophy or something in that vein.
Right.
Having things to just get those last 5-6 points of burn is a very big deal.
I feel like of the Delver decks, this one is one of the better ones at beating Sultai?
Basically, if you just give the deck enough time, it will eventually just have what are effectively lava spikes to point at the Sultai midrange deck's face.
Yeah, the Sultai decks, we saw them with Shardless. We saw, actually, a month ago, some good success with Sultai midrange and Dimir midrange, which is actually a pretty similar strategy. Having those are decks that are being good against the Tundra decks of the format, good against the Delver decks. They struggled against the Ancient Tomb and combo sides of the format, but we weren't seeing as much of them.
Exactly. This is something where you just have the benefit of playing all of these basic lands in order to kind of naturally combat all the Wasteland decks that are trying to win on the mana denial axis. You have a bunch of cheap spells and then are naturally insulated against the non-basic land hate, so you just capitalize on that in being able to apply pressure while making their cards less valid.
Well, Basic Lands and Wastelands Wars is the name of the game. 2 turns in, both players have made a basic island. Austin did have a Wasteland. Mike has not given him a target for it yet. Meantime, Delver of Secrets transforms into Insectile Aberration off a Ponder, and her first hit is in. Mike drops to 17.
And this is where both players sort of want to be, where you want to make sure that you have this early threat on Colin's side of the battlefield. But other than that, Collins isn't really developing very much, which is just going to give Degaro time.
Yeah, Degaro here brainstorming on the end step. Looks like he has found a Fatal Push off it. If that Delver had not transformed that turn, Mike's opener had his one of Liliana the Last Hope in it, would have been able to pick off a 1-1. At a 3-2, he'll likely have to spend the Fatal Push.
Right, but that is a card that just plays such good crowd control against Colin's deck. It picks off Unflipped Delvers, Terramander, Young Pyromancer. It really just locks out most of what Collins is trying to play the game with.
Actually, that Brainstorm was in response to a Ponder by Austin Collins. So you see the Brainstorm resolved, a fetch land up, and now Austin is resolving a Ponder. Finds something he likes. Has not made a land drop yet. And there we have it with Flooded Strand.
These are always the best feeling ponders, where you get the one card you want and then get to shuffle the other 2 cards away.
Yeah. Yeah, that cantrip sequencing, especially in a deck like Izzet, that is has so many cantrips and I guess is so light on resources, they really does matter.
And I want to draw a little bit of attention to something that is pretty subtle, but is going to ripple throughout the game here. Collins had to play this Wasteland on turn 2 because all he saw was a polluted delta and was trying to respect days in order to resolve this Delver of Secrets. But now, Degaro knows to play around this days, and he has a basic forest in his hand. He fetched a basic. This Wasteland is just a colorless mana source now for a very long time.
Yeah, Degaro's deck has 4 basic lands in it. It has 2 islands, and then so 1 more island and the 3 you see in play here. Yeah, it seems unlikely that Austin's going to find a reasonable target for that.
Exactly. You know, blowing up their 4th land is something that the Wasteland might do, but who cares?
Right. 3rd land from Degaro and passes back. And was wondering when we were going to see Fatal Push, and this made sense. He didn't want to play it into a possible daze. And it looks like he then waits till Austin's turn in case there's something like Spell Pierce, there's over a fight like that.
Exactly. You just want Collins to have to commit the resource mana, in this case, on his own turn, rather than just letting him use it on the next turn.
Well, 1 blue is tapped, but it was not a Pierce. It's going to be a Brainstorm from Austin. Of course, Pierce wouldn't counter the Fatal Push here. He'd need help from another card. Brainstorm finds him a Daze, a Fetchland, and a Lightning Bolt. Austin looks like he has at least one, maybe as many as 3 copies of Force of Will in his hand.
And that's a card that, you know, everyone talks about Legacy and Force of Will being a card that people have access to, but that card can be a little bit of a liability in fair matchups just because it is a 2-for-1.
Yeah, in a matchup like this, Force of Will is not a great card. It can defend you, I guess, against some very good turn ones. You know, you might force a turn 1 Delver if you have no removal. But
exactly.
Ideally, you'd like to just spend 1 card on it, not 2. Austin puts cards back. Here's Fatal Push. Austin will spend Force of Will. It's a 2-for-1, but it almost doesn't feel like one, right? It's Force of Will pitching Force of Will. And since the second one, you don't really want to cast 2.
Yeah,
like
I'll give it to you. I'll give
it
to you, but we just turned the Fatal Push from a Fatal Push into a Hymn to Torok.
Yeah, I suppose when you can always... Cards are always cards because
Brainstorm math.
turns them into whatever you want them to
Yeah.
be. So Austin tries for the 2-for-1 here. Force of Willing that Fatal Push. Will Degaro respond?
And this is a spot where if Collins has another Force, that's a way to clean up this Liliana that's hiding out in Degaro's hand. But otherwise, that Liliana is going to enter the battlefield.
Yeah, it would be the 3rd Force of Will for Austin if he had it. You saw Mike actually does look like he has a Force of Will of his own. Don't know if he didn't... Either he didn't have a blue card to pair it with.
It's also possible he would rather... Exactly. He'd rather use it proactively to pave the way for one of his big, powerful cards in order to get through if Austin has another Force of Will.
Yeah, actually looking at Mike's hand, I think the likely reason is he has a copy of Abrupt Decay in his hand. So he's not too concerned about removing this Delver.
Right.
Now this Terramander, he's got to think about. Gives a thumbs up. Austin says go.
And this is actually one of the drawbacks of having a bunch of basic lands is Island does not cast Abrupt Decay, so Degaro is forced to just cast 1 spell a turn and kind of just waste his mana.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. That basic island really does hurt him there.
Mm-hmm. Right, there's a point where, sure, you have this resource on the battlefield, but how much is it actually doing for you?
Yeah, Fatal Push plus Abrupt Decay. You can't have... Yeah, basic island is going to get in the way of that turn.
Right.
A draw here for Degaro. We see Brainstorm, Force of Will, Abrupt Decay. 3, perhaps 4 lands? That's the remainder of his hand.
This is a spot where Degaro could try to just put that Liliana onto the battlefield in order to take out Terramander.
Tropical Island means he's looking a different direction. No double black. And just says go. His hand is Force of Will at the ready. Now, by playing that Tropical Island, he did give Austin a target for that Wasteland.
And that was intentional.
Okay.
He wants a second black source here, and so he wants Austin to go ahead and use Wasteland on Tropical Island instead of the Underground Sea.
That's what Austin does. In response, we're just thinking about Abrupt Decay. Got our first game in. On the standard side, Brad Carpenter on Selesnya tokens takes game 1 over that Grixis control deck we were talking about.
This is an interesting spot where if Degaro doesn't have a use for the rest of the mana, he may be better served just waiting until Collins goes to do something. Because if you Abrupt Decay here and Collins has another land, he could theoretically just grow Terramander.
It's going to be Brainstorm. That's using the Tropical Island. That's being targeted. Fetchland, Assassin's Trophy, and another Fetchland picked up for Mike. Getting pretty heavy on lands. I kind of expect him to put 2 of them back.
Yeah, at this point, you definitely want to shuffle a couple of those away.
Yeah, now unfortunately he can't shuffle a couple. He's going to have to draw 1 of them, but he certainly can shuffle the other one away. Right, he doesn't have another shuffle in hand. So, like Scar sees, Tropical Island into the bin. I like how Mike's prioritized removal, though. Abrupt Decay, Liliana, and Assassin's Trophy. One of the things about the Izzet deck is that it doesn't actually play that many true threats. So you just can kind of make land drops while removing things. You oftentimes are left in a pretty good place.
Exactly. There's not really any kind of card advantage since the Izzet Delver decks have given up on light up the stage.
Yeah. Let's swing with both creatures from Austin. You see black-green at the ready. Which target, which removal. It's going to be the Decay, and he actually got Decay's Terramander here.
At this point, the fear is if you go to Abrupt Decay the Delver, Austin has the ability to daze just to put a fifth instant or sorcery in the graveyard and then make the Terramander a 5/5.
Oh, there's enough. I guess our instant count is getting pretty high here.
Right, there are 4 instants and sorceries in the graveyard right now. Daze would make 5, and you just float the mana before you cast the daze.
Yeah. Going back to Austin's Wasteland play, if he was thinking about a transform this turn, do you feel like there was an argument to not using Wasteland?
It seemed pretty close, but when he drew the daze is when he decided that he could go ahead and Wasteland here, since it did give him a free spell, and the only way you ever go for it is if you know it's going to actually get through.
Okay.
And that would force Degaro to cast some spell that Collins could theoretically daze for the sake of putting a card in his graveyard.
Yeah, I guess at this point in the game, it's unlikely that Degaro has no removal. So if you're going for that, going for an adapt would be a forcing play. It would force him to use the removal, but it's unlikely that it just happens.
Exactly.
Swing for 3 from the Insectile Aberration. And we see Assassin's Trophy by Mike. Basic land count on Austin Collins' side, it's 3 islands and 1 mountain, so no lack of targets there. That said, it looks like he does want to fight, and it's going to be a second Force of Will, this time pitching that daze, leaving Austin with, I believe, just 1 card remaining.
Yeah, this is a spot where Collins realizes that he's kind of running out of things to pressure Degaro with, and you just have to protect the queen here.
Make that 2 cards. And Delver of Secrets is the other one.
Make it 1 card.
Yeah. The hit took Mike down to 7. He will fetch down to 6. Those points with a potential 2 transformed Delvers, that's a pretty big fetch. You're on Mike's side. I think you're kind of hoping that Austin's last card isn't a Lightning Bolt.
Right. At this point, you really need to try and take out that Delver of Secrets. Just you need to claw back in the game somehow, and that's one of your easiest avenues to doing so. And then you just have to hope that Collins bricks.
Yeah. Ponder the draw for Mike. He does have a target for Liliana now. A lot of things are going to have to go right here.
Right, and there is a point where you can play the Liliana, kill the Delver, and then you do have force backup with this Ponder, if he chooses not to cast it, in order to just have protection against one of those bolt effects.
Yeah, it's going to be Liliana, plus almost certainly here to remove the Delver. And I think it'll be really interesting as to whether he casts the Ponder or doesn't cast the Ponder.
Right, and it's unlikely. There may be a spot where he ends up trying to shrink the bigger Insectile Aberration here and just saying, well, if you hit an instant or sorcery, I'm dead anyway, but that's not a super realistic line.
Up to 4 goes Liliana. Delver into the graveyard. An attack. Austin ignoring the Planeswalker. And he goes for the win here with the Lightning Bolt, so Mike does have the Force plus blue card to stay alive here. He went down to 3, now we'll go down to 2 on the Force of Will. In response, Austin will Brainstorm. I'm not sure if he can find something that wins right here.
Another bolt.
Okay, another bolt. Doesn't find that.
Does he have Flusterstorm main deck? It does not appear so.
Looks like he's gone for...
he just has 3 Spell Pierces.
3 Spell Pierce, yeah, and a 1 Vapor Snag.
Oh, Forked Bolt also wins now, so that's a reason to do that as sorcery speed.
And now things are getting even dicier. Plus the Delver down to 1. Both the cards in Mike's hand are fetch lands. He knows he's going to 1 on this attack, so he doesn't bother playing a fetch land.
Again, 3:30 standard challenge player.
which makes sense. Down to 1. He needs removal. Another Delver.
That's a big draw. That actually just puts another squeeze on Degaro's life total.
Well, kind of, right? It actually, he needed a removal spell either way, so Liliana pluses, removes the 1/1 Delver, draws off Baleful Strix, draws into a black card into Diabolic Edict, and Mike has stabilized.
Oh.
I mean, he's at 1, but
this Liliana's close to ulting.
it's Liliana's close enough. And Vapor Snag on the Baleful Strix. Well, you can make yourself sacrifice the Baleful Strix, but that doesn't do anything. I don't think that Mike has a way out. Austin finds the removal. Austin brainstorms a response.
Playing for information? Can respect that.
Yeah, right. Of course, question is, who is the Diabolic Edict targeting? The Edict. Yeah, he's at 1, right? We'll confirm that Mike is at 1. Yeah, Mike is at 1.
All right.
Okay, the Vapor Snag does resolve, and now he's at 0. So game 1 goes to Austin Collins.
You can see that trophy sitting off next to him.
Oh, wow.
Do you think
Do
you think he sits down each round with like
Oh.
like a washcloth or something and just like polishes it a little bit and says, "Oh, hey, is it me you're looking for? Me, the SCG Philly champion?"
You know, I'm not saying Austin doesn't have the chops, but when you are Austin's age, and if you start showing up to every match and put your trophy next to you, people are going to want to beat you. Oh, man.
Do you not just gonna?
I mean, he can walk the walk, so we'll see what happens here. But that is throwing down the gauntlet to anyone across the table from him.
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely a spot where if I sit down and my opponent brings their trophy from the week before,
His sideboard is just
and he's
in the trophy
sideboarding
cup?
out of it.
Okay.
That's what we in the biz call a power move.
Yeah. Oh, this got interesting. Okay, I mean, he's 4-0, right? And he's up a game. And his teammates are all up games. So if he wins this week, is he showing up the next tournament with 2 trophies? Is he just gonna keep stacking them next to him until he loses?
He's very proud of this trophy, okay?
Wow. Let's look at the sideboards here. Austin Collins. Pyroblast, 2 Flusterstorms, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Blood Moon, 2 Abrade, an Entrancing Melody. I like it. A copy of Price of Progress, an Is It Staticaster, and an Electrickery.
Most of what you're looking to do here, the Price of Progress, very strong. Blood Moon.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looked bad.
It did, right. Okay, yeah, keep going. It's like Price of Progress, Price of Progress.
Right.
Hold on.
So here's
Hold
the
on.
thing. Generally, that card is going to be just reach for 4 or more points of damage eventually. Okay. The games that Degaro ends up pulling ahead in are the games where Price of Progress ends up being good. We saw that game where Degaro just gave Collins a bunch of time on the back of the basics that he fetched. He wasn't able to cast his spells effectively because he was a little bit choked on mana. Basic Island, if we're being honest, kind of stinks a lot of the time. And with all the cantrips in your deck, sometimes Basic Forest and Basic Swamp are weak as well. So it's a way to just kind of put a squeeze on Degaro's mana.
All right. Interesting. So I like the price. Do you like Blood Moon as well?
That one's a little bit worse because it doesn't actually contribute to killing Degaro. And when you're the aggressor in the matchup, you want to do things that are more proactive than what Blood Moon is doing. Blood Moon is for more, say, turbo depths or some situation where they can kill you faster and you just need stopgaps for that.
So, it'll be interesting to see how he boards it. If you haven't had a chance, on this channel we have Versus Live, which is our Versus series, except it's live every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m.
Hey, sometimes it even has special guests. Hint, hint, hint.
Well, certainly has guests.
Yeah,
sometimes.
exactly. Maybe they're not always special, but they are guests.
You can find that. If you're watching this, you can see it on our website, Star City, or twitch.tv/SCGTour. So wherever you're watching us right now, that's where you can watch this. On Mike Degaro's sideboard, it's got 3 Surgical Extraction, 2 Dread of Night, 2 Flusterstorm, and then a lot of 1s. He has some Disruption in Spell Pierce and Thought Seize. Some removal with Abrupt Decay to the Slaughter, Liliana, Toxic Deluge, a Wasteland, and a Life from the Loam.
So ironically, a lot of what we're seeing, this deck is kind of what the Sultai midrange deck, this list in particular, is kind of built to beat up on. I mentioned those Scavenging Oozes before. Snapcaster Mage is very strong here.
Yeah.
Leovold, also very strong. True Name Nemesis, I could go on for a little while. Most of what he's trying to do is just make his deck a little bit better at doing what it does, and he's going to try and shave some copies of things in the vein of Force of Will, because there isn't any single power card from Austin other than maybe True Name Nemesis that he's that afraid of. So we can maybe see something to the effect of, we'll say Toxic Deluge, because that mops up an entire Young Pyromancer, as well as True Name Nemesis. Abrupt Decay is great against the soft counter magic at killing the early pressure. Spell Pierce is fine. Those are the
Slaughter
big things.
plays. It's a little expensive. I'm not sure he'll go toward it.
Yeah, it's also just so awkward against Young Pyromancer.
It's pretty bad there.
Yeah, any type of edict that costs 3 is really rough. And we saw that game. It didn't quite have time to get online, but if Degaro had just jammed Liliana Last Hope earlier, it would have absolutely taken over the game. So he's very interested in bringing in another copy of that card.
I do want to mention something out of his sideboard. 1 Wasteland in the sideboard. He actually doesn't have any copies in the main. This is his only one in the 75. It feels to me like it's part of a strategy with Life from the Loam to help him combat things like lands.
Right. That's more of a role player than it is something that he's trying to just fire off for mana denial purposes. These grindy decks in Legacy aren't generally trying to mana deny people unless that is the key strategy. You know, your lands, Life from Loam exploration decks. But here, you're planning on the game to go so long that Mana Screw isn't the game that you're winning. You're trying to instead beat them on the card advantage front.
Jerry Thompson, who was in the booth earlier today and will be again later.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he had heard of him. One of the innovators of the Shardless Sultai deck many years ago had talked about Wasteland in that regard. That was a deck that played 2 copies of it in the main, not 4. And that, at the time, that was pretty off the wall. You know, it was a 4-of card in most decks. I remember the thought was, you don't generally waste their mana-producing lands. You waste their lands that are going to beat you, and if they don't have any of those, then you don't use the Wasteland.
Right. That card really shouldn't even be thought of as a land most of the time. It's much closer to a spell in practice.
Yeah. In this deck, sometimes you tap it to make mana.
Right, but even then, the spells are so color-intensive that it's pretty rough.
Yeah, when in a format where most of your spells cost 1 and 2, you just don't get that many colorless mana pips.
Right, and even last game, we saw things like Basic Island weren't good enough, right? We have Abrupt Decay, Leovold, all the cantrips, Assassin's Trophy.
Mike on the play here, as both players have kept on 7 for game 2. Starts with a ponder, but doesn't really like what he sees, so he's going to shuffle him away.
Looked like he was digging for a land, and he just had a bunch of spells on top.
Does not find the land yet. He does have another ponder in his hand. Actually, check that. He has a Misty Rainforest. He'll be okay.
It's a handsome land.
And just a basic back from Austin as well. True Name Nemesis, the draw that turn for Mike. He's going to want to try to set up that 3rd land drop. Right now, he does not have it.
And this is a scary spot because if you think Austin has a Daze and a Wasteland, you can't cast the Baleful Strix in your hand since Misty Rainforest can't fetch a basic swamp.
Yeah, and I think out of respect for that, he goes for the ponder. But it's why it's hard to play around these Delver decks. Turns out Austin has a Spell Pierce.
Whoops.
And Mike, is he going to fight back is now the question. No, he will let it get countered. Passes the turn.
This is a spot where he decided that he was playing around Daze, and so fighting over it with the Spell Pierce in his hand is just not respecting Daze. And if you're not committing to playing around the Daze, then why didn't you just cast this Baleful Strix?
Ponder from Austin Collins as a turn 2 has not made the land drop yet. So Mike actually has a Spell Pierce in hand at the front, but I noticed just no interest in countering this ponder.
Exactly. You're just trying to play around this Daze that you decided you were playing around by not casting the Baleful Strix. That was a pretty committed, all right, we're respecting Daze this game. I'm going to hit my land drops instead type of move.
Land from Austin. He says go. Now Mike will just have to, can he naturally draw land 3? He does not. So no way to find that land. He can just run out a Baleful Strix and hope there's no Daze. Or it looks like he has a Brainstorm. Maybe that's the safer way to go.
Ooh, going for the in-step brainstorm, it looks like, eventually.
Yeah, that one's interesting. It means he misses a turn. He misses a land drop for this turn.
Right, and that's a little bit... We'll say it's more forgiving to do that when Collins isn't pressuring him at all. If they both stare at each other and play land drops, that's going to inevitably favor the Soul Time mid-range deck because it just has more powerful spells.
Their team is on the board. Buzzy Adriatico takes game 2 with Grixis control. And I just want to give a shout out to this deck. It is so mid-rangey. As I mentioned, it was 4 Nicol Bolas, 4 Disinformation Campaign, 4 Ritual of Soot, 3 Angrath.
3 Angrath the Flame Chained.
Yeah.
This hand is trying to make you discard everything.
Yeah, his whole deck is just full of sorcery speed cards that cost 3 through 5.
Look, sometimes you just know what you're about. You tap 3 and you say, this card's going to put me up a card. And then you tap 4 and tell your opponent, this is going to put me up a card. And so on.
Brainstorm in response. So it's Young Pyromancer. Austin passes priority. Mike makes a Brainstorm, and now Austin, he's going to want to fire off another spell immediately to get some of those elemental tokens.
Exactly. This is a spot where if Degaro has the Fatal Push or something to that effect, you don't want to give him a chance to cast it.
And it is Spell Pierce for Austin. And this time Mike decides he wants to fight. He's going to have to pierce back, right?
Yeah, if you know you're not hitting land drops, you need to just give yourself the biggest chance to stay in the game.
Now, Daze from Austin, if he has it, would be a back-breaking play here.
Ooh. This is the spot where basically you have to respect, you can't respect it anymore, you're just not in the game if you don't play Magic.
Right. So 1 elemental from the Spell Pierce. Yeah, what is it? It means Mike would get a countered Brainstorm. Austin would get 2 elementals. Ugh. It would, yeah.
Also potentially exposes this Underground Sea to a wasteland.
Yeah, all of the above. Here is the Spell Pierce. Check. Does Austin have the Daze? Pierce, Pierce. No, he says you can resolve the Brainstorm. Some good news for Degaro. And there's that third land. It's a forest, finds a fetch land, finds a Abrupt Decay, a great
That's
3
a good
cards.
Set of cards.
Yeah.
That is what we were looking for. Even finding the basic forest to go with Island Underground Sea is so nice.
So now that Austin didn't Daze here, how do you feel about Mike playing the forest and just playing True Name Nemesis straight away?
I am very interested in introducing the difference between jelly and jam.
One has chunk pieces of fruit.
No, you can't jelly a True Name Nemesis onto the battlefield.
Oh, I see. I want to talk about canning. I'm a big fan of it. You see, if you add peel to it, it becomes a marmalade.
Am I allowed to be on the stream and call you a nerd?
I canned some marmalade, just like last month.
I'll bet it was delicious, to be honest.
It was okay.
My favorite thing
I wasn't the
in
happiest
Syracuse involves marmalade.
See Terramander from Austin. Swing in. Abrupt Decay took care of the Young Pyromancer, so just a 1/1 elemental left behind.
And the theory here is that Degaro just wants to make sure that he's covering his bases, more or less. The ways that Collins runs away with the game are X, Y, and Z. And taking out Young Pyromancer now rather than casting the True Name Nemesis is one of the ways to just make sure you don't give Collins the opportunity to go cantrip, 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 and then just go around the True Name Nemesis.
Spell count here. We have, looks like 2 in the graveyard right now for the Terramander.
That's not a lot.
Yeah. A lot of great stuff, though, in the hand here for Degaro. Baleful Strix, True Name Nemesis, and Jace the Mind Sculptor. And Assassin's Trophy.
The problem these decks always face is never how good their cards are, it's if they get to cast all of them.
Yeah, these are 4 great cards he has.
Exactly.
And he's going to start with True Name Nemesis. I was reconsidering it.
Yeah, the big thing here is being mana efficient is so attractive.
Yeah, I mean, before he was playing around Daze, which really does make sense, except I think we already hit a point where just Austin doesn't have the Daze. He's going to go for Baleful Strix, which isn't going to be bad here, but to me feels like it might be too conservative.
Yeah, it's a little tough. It's just kind of Degaro taking the next step into grinding out the game. True Name Nemesis can't really block the Pteramander, so this makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah. Now the draw, another great card, was the one of Liliana the Last Hope again.
It may be a 2 of post board because he did have another one in his sideboard, and that's something he would be
certainly
very interested in bringing in another copy of.
For Austin, Brainstorm. No real interaction left on Mike's side, just the Assassin's Trophy. He's thinking about pulling the trigger, but that seems a little too soon.
A lot of it is just you don't want to give Austin the shuffle after the Brainstorm. That's the big thought here.
So if you're going to do it now?
Exactly. Even if he's just saying, okay, well, if I don't do it now, I'm sort of committing to not casting it this turn.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Austin putting 2 back there.
And it's entirely possible Collins doesn't shuffle, but let's be realistic.
And Forked Bolt. 1 and 1, Mike to 17. And this was the worry, is that a removal spell like this will force you to Assassin's Trophy anyway.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Looks like that is going to be the case. Now, all things said, even though this is a negative exchange, if Mike gets to untap and make Liliana the Last Hope next turn, I think it's all going to be forgiven.
That feels pretty strong here. You know, look at Degaro's life total. He's at 17. This is not a bad spot.
Yeah.
Even Collins getting in with these puts him in a pretty comfy 15.
And he could catch the Pteramander before it adapts. He'll have to do it soon. Here's the swing for 2. Looks like Degaro's going to play it even more safe. May just go for the Assassin's Trophy here. If it gets dazed or spell pierced, he might actually be happy with this.
It's a little close. He wants it to get spell pierced and not dazed, but he's still playing under the assumption that it's unlikely that Collins ripped a daze here. So you're just hoping to tag the spell pierce to pave the way for your Liliana next turn.
Yeah, if it got pierced, that'd be fantastic.
Exactly. That'd be a huge win for Degaro.
So the play is the Assassin's Trophy. It would give Austin that shuffle you had mentioned. Remember, he did Brainstorm, and Austin will daze. 2 damage in, Mike to 14. Getting close on that spell count as Austin makes another land. I think we have 6 spells in the graveyard and 2 lands up. I'm not sure that Liliana works here.
So we have
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make it 7.
Oof.
So he can adapt it twice. Yeah, that Liliana's no good here.
This has become very rough very quick.
Another land for Degaro. I mean, Jace the Mind Sculptor can unsummon it, and it only takes 1 on the crackback, so that might be okay.
That gives him a turn. He is still at a pretty comfortable life total.
Right.
All things considered. And if Collins doesn't have a removal spell, Degaro can also roll down Liliana, get back Baleful Strix in order to put it in front of the Pteramander. That does mean the Liliana would die to the Elemental token. But it is a way that he can eventually deal with this Pteramander if push comes to shove.
Looks like he's going to go start with that Jace play. And with the board as it is, it's going to have to be Jace unsummon, right?
Absolutely.
But, yeah, so it'll unsummon. It'll deal with it for a bit, but now that Pteramander can just get recast and adapted. In response, a Brainstorm from Austin. Maybe he can find a Spell Pierce, and none of this matters.
He could find a Spell Pierce. It's also possible that he brought in some number of his Pyroblast to fight True Name Nemesis and Leovold.
Okay. He found some red cards. Might just be Lightning Bolts. We'll find out.
Those certainly deal with a Jace the Mind Sculptor.
With how it's looking right now, with him fetching with the Jace on the stack, I think he found something better than Lightning Bolts.
That can't be good for Degaro.
No. No, I think we found a found a
red
Pyroblast. And indeed, Pyroblast is the card. There will be no Jace on this battlefield. And Austin's going to get to untap. It's going to be 6 damage, most likely. Adapt cost on that Pteramander is all the way down to 1.
Let us make it a scary Terry.
I like that. Austin starts with Ponder. When you're on the other side, it always feels so bad when your opponent has won a big exchange and you're just waiting for him to adapt the Pteramander, and then they say, hold on, I will Ponder. And then they're looking at their cards, just like, oh, come on.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Come on.
Like, it's the right play, too. You're like, I don't have anything. You already...
Oh, he's playing strong here. He's staring.
Yeah, he's
and
staring
going,
at him.
all right, show
Ooh,
me.
Found another
Do
daze.
it. You won't. You're a chicken.
There's the adapt. Pteramander now a 5/5, a swing for 6. Mike down to 8. Mike.
Collins needs to keep the dice in his trophy.
Oh, just everything? Just
Pull
everything
the
in
die
there.
out of the trophy and put it on the Pteramander. Imagine the power in that move.
Like, you know, keep some M&Ms in the trophy, too.
Little snacky snack.
You should make it some snacks, some like medium snacks. You know, like M&Ms are great, but maybe like fill it with like some now and laters just for the rubbins.
Some now and laters.
You know, I'm gonna see you eating them out of the trophy, and then it'll be like, oh, that's not even a good candy. I know I really want to beat you, but I can't, and it's even more frustrating. Just gotta let him know. Mike, Liliana the Last Hope's the play. There's the line you mentioned. The -2 brings back Baleful Strix here. It might be the play.
It's probably what he's locked into doing. That's the only way you ever answer this Pteramander.
Brings back the Strix. It's getting more difficult here. His hand is just True Name Nemesis and Baleful Strix. The Nemesis doesn't do anything here anymore. Here's Baleful Strix. Card drawn. He has the extra land, so Austin can't daze here. But you just look on Austin's reaction. He was so non-phased by that Strix. It makes you think that something's going to happen. Elemental attacks Liliana, and what a choice.
This cannot feel good.
Oh, wow.
And I love how fast he made that attack.
I was just like, yeah.
Honestly, the body language there really sells it for me.
You have to decide your 1/1 Death Touch is worth too much, and then here's True Name Nemesis as the follow-up. And once Nemesis is on the board, with other creatures next to it, there just aren't that many ways for Sultai to interact.
Well, you see, you can legally cast your own True Name Nemesis.
Which is his play. His other cards are a land and
a Flusterstorm.
Flusterstorm, yeah. He'll make his own True Name. But a pass here, and now things looking to be a 2-0 for Austin Collins if he can just hold on here. The nice thing is he'll get an attack for 3, which means even if Degaro draws Toxic Deluge, he can no longer cast it.
Ooh. Well, he can cast it for not casting it.
Yeah, right? Because if he casts it for anything less than 5, then he dies to the Pteramander.
Yeah.
And again, Austin with that kind of like soul-crushing ponder right there.
I do wish that Degaro had held that Polluted Delta that he played last turn. The ways that he gets back into this game are just the absurd brainstorm into exact perfects types of draws. And you already have a fetch land on the battlefield, so it may have been a little bit better to at least give himself the opportunity to get in the game if he, say, brainstorm into Deluge plus Fatal Push.
Delver's the play. Brent down to 5. And yeah, right, so it's like some sort of Snapcaster something. Fetchland plus Flusterstorm is not going to be it.
I would say it's close, but I would be lying.
Yeah. That is not going to do it. Austin will end this one. Top card is a Spell Pierce. This does give him a lethal attack if he chooses to take it.
And we've seen from Degaro last game, he plays to the bitter end.
All right. Well, the bitter end is not too far away. And attack. Austin deciding does he want to do it in 1 turn or 2. He'll go for it in 1. Mike does not have an answer. He's going to take 3 from a flyer, 3 more from the True Name Nemesis, and 2-0. Austin Collins going to, your champion, going to keep the streak going right now. He wins 1 and just needs help from one of his teammates.
How do you feel about peeping in at that standard match?
I want to see this Grixis deck.
I'm very excited. This Grixis deck.
This deck has, and so I'm not counting Discovery Dispersal as a 2-drop because it's a cantrip. It has 2 Search Rescanta, 4 Thought Erasure, and every other card costs 3 or more.
I mean, Discovery Dispersal costs 7. That's the rules.
Oh no, I need to correct. We have Lava Coil. Now I misrepresented it. This one just starting with game 3. So Brad, at the get-go, turn 3 does have History of Benalia. Looks like Buzzy has missed a land. No, never mind. He's on the play. He was on the draw. We're going into his 3rd turn. He Lava Coiled away Amara on turn 2. And we're going to see Search for Azcanta.
Uh-oh. It may be that missed land drop.
Isn't that so? Actually, so the fake missed land drop has turned into a real missed land drop. There's the Search. Does he have another one to follow it up with? He does.
Okay.
All right.
All right. We have a game.
20. Okay. A draw for Brad. Goes up. History goes to chapter 2. Here's another knight. And a swing in. Buzzy down to 18. And it's going to be Sapling Migration. 2 more tokens. So we got up to 4 tokens for the Selesnya deck here, and it looks like they're going to convoke out Venerated Loxodon. Big play here. Now remember, Buzzy's on a 4x Ritual of Soot deck, so he's got answers.
Well, he has to have a black source and the Ritual of Soot itself, or he's just dead on the battlefield. This is a ton of damage.
It's a ton of damage. Yeah, and I like this play from Brad. It plays around the 2 of Cry of the Carnariums that are in Buzzy's sideboard as well. So he's really just playing to that sweeper. Can he find one? Puts a card on top.
That was a fast
draw.
draw.
That makes me think we're still playing. You don't do that and then concede.
Well,
maybe.
I hope he's slow rolling this Ritual.
I mean, I guess if you're missing both Ritual and the land, then maybe you top a land and then try to figure it out.
Double Lava Coil, something to that effect.
Yeah. If I had neither Ritual or land and I saw land on top, I mean, I'd put it in my hand. Yeah, I don't think it's there. This is taking way too long.
Yeah, it looks like he's now doing the math.
Separating out. Looks like 2 set aside for a Lava Coil. So, Coil shoots down the Loxodon, but we're looking at 4 damage off the Saprolings, and each knight dealing 5. So he'll go to 4. He topped a card there, but I didn't play a land.
Yeah, it's a tough sell.
It might be that he missed the search trigger and just drew the card.
Oh, or what if it's the Ritual of Soot?
Okay, if that's there too. Yeah, you
got
to do it in some order.
Way it gets back in the game.
Yeah, take this hit, go to 4. I mean, you did just remove the 1 creature that survives Ritual of Soot.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's a way that he could be back in this.
So the Knights make it 10. The Saplings make it 14. Buzzy is down to 4.
Players in the team constructed open. That is time.
Yeah, and that was. I think we are looking at his hand. I do think we have the Ritual of Soot. So halfway. Now he needs the other part. Here's the difficulty, though. 2nd Venerated Loxodon from Brad. That has converted mana cost 5. That means Ritual of Soot is no longer good enough.
Ooh.
And for Adriatico, I don't see a way out. Going to mill over a disinformation campaign, draw something else, but he has been blitzed out of the game by Brad Carpenter in Game 3. Selesnya Tokens deck is going to pick up the win, and that's going to mean the team of Collins, Syed, and Carpenter move to 5-0.
And that's kind of the problem that you'll see with these tokens decks that the mid-range decks and control decks have, is you also just have a ton of card advantage engines in History, Benalia, and so on, but all of your card advantage can attack.
Right.
So you're fooling around making people discard cards, all the while you're just taking damage.
Yeah, fungal infection not going to play here as he extends the hand. Yeah, and it's interesting, right? So we do see the Celestial Tokens deck have a real weakness to sweepers. But against control decks, sometimes it can be fine because it's really a sweeper or bust situation.
Right.
Like, that's like when you play against it with Chris's control, Ritual of Soot is the only card that matters. And that's just a tough place to be.
Yeah, exactly. And there are also a lot of spots